I want you to get together.
When ordinary people think of autumn, they imagine shorter days, cozy fires, curling up with a great piece of literature, and basking in the warming scent of cinnamon with shades of burnt orange, which your other half has decided to spend the life savings on to decorate the home for only 2 months, just as God intended. Yet we must remember that this transition into the frosty abyss of winter creates the perfect conditions for the spread of the pathogen known as Halloween. This disease causes people to dress like demons and go door to door asking for free stuff. This public service announcement aims to give you the correct tool to help you deal with these contagious commie behaviours when they manifest in your local community. First, you'll want to arm yourself with multiple shots of the best-selling paperback on Amazon called The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns. With this PPE, you're fully equipped and well protected to handle what's to come next. Second, have a pumpkin spice latte and white girl autumn your time away in knitted cream shackets and pilgrim hats, because soon enough, Samhain begins. This is when the veil between the spirit realm and the physical world is at its thinnest, and possession, the main symptom of Halloween, is more commonly presented, causing this type of unironic cringe to start happening. Just look at him. This poor soul thinks he looks cool. And if you're not careful, this could be you. Together we can stop the spread of Halloween and flatten the curve. When you see fully grown adults playing dress-up and mirroring unspeakable horrors from beyond the void, remember your training and cure their vapid sense of self-identity by handing them one of our favourably reviewed treatments. Your country must develop herd immunity to seasonal cringe. So, spread the cure far and wide. Just like the cure, this disease does not discriminate by age. Emulating the infected, you will see children running around in bedsheets, knocking on doors, begging for sugary treats, and threatening to damage your well-earned property. Make sure to fill their novelty buckets with the one thing all children secretly want: a well-rounded and relatable education in biblical history. That'll stop the spread. The Nephilim Look Like Clowns and the inevitable booster volumes are currently the only known cure to thinly veiled demon channeling holidays. This is your best defense against this pandemic of spooky proportions. All you have to do is trust the science. Which you know we did, because I'm showing you people wearing lab coats and looking serious. Get your copy on Amazon today and be prepared for tomorrow. Side effects of reading The Nephilim Look Like Clowns include, but are not limited to, a feeling of existential crisis, a well-rounded knowledge of a Christian contrarian view on human history, a foundational understanding of spiritual warfare, and a healthy aversion to clowns.
But yeah, we kind of wanted to introduce you to our viewers, and you can kind of just talk about yourself a little bit, and also the clown theory, like overall. That I'm pretty sure you're the first person that I know of that has spoken about it. Did you actually discover it yourself, or?
Yeah, yes, it's all from me in 2016. Yeah, I'm the guy.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and then I originally was going to I just had like a few pictures. I don't know if you've looked at kind of like the content that I make, but I dive into like a lot of music stuff, especially the alternative community niches and things like that. And so I was going to put together just some bands that I knew of that had clown makeup, masks, like that kind of thing. And then I kind of went down a little rabbit hole and found like how it all connects.
Cool.
And so I was excited to share that too with you.
Yeah. Share with me anything you find at all. I'm fascinated. I mean, to be honest, when it comes to like popular mainstream music stuff, I'm completely out of the loop. I don't follow any of it. So I'm thankful for people like you who do that and show me. I'm like, oh, well, there it is, So yeah, absolutely. Share
well, we are so excited to meet you. I mean, I feel like we haven't really introduced ourselves, but I'm Lacey, and
my name's Max. Yeah.
We know you're Paul because we watch your videos, but you've actually been like one of our favorite people in this space because you're very just down to earth and super humble. And I know you like have no idea probably who we are, but we feel like we know you because we've watched your channel.
Yes.
So
Well,
we were really excited.
That's nice to hear. It's weird because I'm just some guy with I'm the same as you. I'm a nobody, and I have people as well. I watch, and I'm probably like I feel like I've known them my entire life, and they have no idea. I'm exactly the same, So I get that
Yeah.
feeling. I understand, but it's weird being on the other side of it, to be honest. But yeah, fair enough.
That makes sense. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, this is Paul, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. We have him on today to talk about his Nephilim clown theory. That if you haven't been to his channel, he has a ton of videos on it. Other channels have chimed in on the topic, and obviously he's got his book next to him. But yeah, we're super excited to have you here, Paul. And so Paul's going to give you kind of a little bit about him, his background with conspiracy, Christianity, anything else you want to share, and the lay the foundation for the clown theory. And then I put together a short slideshow of this same topic within the rock and roll history. Heavy metal, rap, punk, all these different genres they have this same theme tied into their history going back to the 60s is as far back as I went, but it goes back even further. So hopefully we can get into some interesting things today. And this is Paul. Welcome, Paul.
All right, yeah, thanks for having me. So I'll just go into it. As you said, I'll introduce myself. My name's Paul Stobbs. I'm the author of the book The Nephilim Look Like Clowns, which was published this year. So there it is. You can get a copy on Amazon if you're interested. But this is just volume 1 called The History. And it's basically a summary of about 8 years worth of work, which I've been doing on YouTube primarily over the past, since 2016, when it all kicked off in October. And I started writing the book maybe 2 years ago, and I'm halfway through. I've published the first half here as one solid book, and I'm still working on the second one now, which should hopefully be out in the second year. But to be honest, if you want to find out what I'm writing about, it's all already laid out on like a 45 episode series on my channel called The Nephilim Look Like Clowns. So primarily what it is, it's an anthropological study of folk traditions all over the earth, which dress in a specific way to channel what they call their ancestors. And I come from a Christian biblical background, and my research has mainly been focusing on the antediluvian age, the Watchers, the Nephilim, and I have made the connection that the way these people dress to channel what they call their ancestors are pretty much akin to what we would call a clown in the West. Very, very similar features: white face makeup, red polka dots, red nose, a red wig made of feathers or reeds or diamonds or jewels or ribbons, whatever the culture has available in terms of resources they'll use. But you'll find the aesthetics are just so similar across continents, where they just shouldn't have no business being the same, but they always seem to dress the same, aesthetically stylized way, shall we say. And I realized, there's something to that, because who are these ancestor spirits exactly? And you go into these cultures and you realize, well, they're not aunties and uncles and great-great-granddads or anything. That's not what they mean. That's just kind of the word we've used from our language in English to try and transliterate what they mean when they say the ancestors. What they mean are the ancient gods of their civilization and culture. And when they dress that way, they are purposely doing it to channel the spirits and be possessed by them. And then that was one part of my study. A lot of my work is based around that. But then also you go into the history of the occult, secret societies. You can find that, well, actually, people who dress like clowns in the West, they seem to be heavily involved in the occult in the mainstream for some reason. And then you go even deeper, and I started to scratch below the surface, and I realized the costume of a clown was created by Freemasonry. It's a symbol through and through to represent the exact same thing these other cultures are wearing, likely a direct copy, in fact. And I think it's been created as like a caricature of the Nephilim. Now, a lot of this work is based on the idea that what we call demons, disembodied spirits which wander the earth, kind of trapped, disembodied, stuck here on earth who cause problems for humanity, we call them demons. Well, these are specifically the disembodied spirits of giants that used to wander the earth. And this comes off the research of a lot of people better than me who have been in the game for a lot longer. People like Gary Wayne, he's wrote a whole book extensively about the Nephilim. And, I was seeped in that kind of research from 2012 to 2016. So while swimming in that Nephilim antediluvian stuff and making these connections and learning just where demons come from, I did start to see these odd similarities in the way they're depicted throughout the cultures. And the clown, and I was having my own personal spiritual experiences, which maybe we can get into later, which were kind of cluing me into this idea that there's a connection here somehow between clowns and demons. I come from a psychedelic background prior to being saved and becoming a Christian. I've explored these DMT realms people talk about, and I'd seen jesters, and it's a very common thing when people do these drugs to see jesters in this realm. And knowing that and then learning about what disembodied spirits are, the Nephilim, and then they look like jesters, that was one of my first major hints, okay, so disembodied spirits have clown features. Now, like I said, it just kept, the connections just kept coming after 2016 because we had this creepy clown sighting phenomena, which kind of shook everything up and everyone was terrified that people were dressing like clowns on street corners, scaring the crap out of people and just being generally menacing and weird. And what I thought was weird about that is that the media was picking up on it en masse. Every small news station in every single state all across America and even in the UK was talking about the creepy clown sightings. It was like ridiculous how it was just like perfectly covered across the Western Anglosphere, shall we say, the English speaking world. And it was happening everywhere as well. Everyone was getting on board with it. And I thought, well, nothing really gets on that box in the corner of your living room unless they want it to be there. I knew enough about the occult by that point and the control system to know this isn't an accident. Clowns mean something to these people. It's a symbol of some kind. And like I said, after that day, I just dug into it and all these connections just got made. And I have discovered quite literally the history of a clown was created by Freemasons, the son of a famous Freemason in the 1800s. All circuses have been run by Freemasons since that time. And the costume they've created is used for the exact same purpose all these other cultures around the earth use it for, to channel demons. And it's not really a secret in these other countries. They'll tell you that's what they're doing. But in the West, it's occult. It's hidden. The masses aren't supposed to know that's what it's for. And that's what we'll get into today. You want to talk about the music industry? It is still used today as a tool specifically for channeling demons to gain what these other cultures want. Power, influence, knowledge. Name your vice. These things are there to make a transaction with you, a deal. You dress like the demon, let it into your vessel. You feed the demon by eating stuff, drinking stuff, smoking stuff. The demon will reward you because you've let it experience those things it no longer can because it doesn't have a body anymore. And that's the deal. And that's basically the work summarized very quickly. That's the fastest I've ever done it, I think.
Really nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very efficient.
Yeah.
Great overview.
Yes.
My question
stuff.
is,
Go ahead.
what got you like into this specific topic? Because it's a very like narrow focus. So
Yeah, so like I said, I grew up non-religious. I wasn't raised in a religious household in any way, shape, or form. It just wasn't even a thought, really. It wasn't. It's not like we were anti-religious as a family, or my parents were like dogmatic communistic atheists or something. They just didn't even think about it. It really was not on their mind at all. It was just we was just focused on paying the bills and living each day as it comes. Just no time to really bother with politics and all that, or religion or anything like that. And I kind of had the same attitude, really. And I suppose as I got into my edgy teen phases, I was kind of anti-religious because that's what everyone else around me was. And I went down the atheistic, scientific, mathematical route about reality. If I can't see it with my own eyes, then it's not real type of thing. And, and I would rage against religion for reasons I don't really understand. Now, when I think back at it, I don't know why I did it. I just did. But as I got later into my later teens and I was experimenting with things like, smoking weed and experimental free head shop drugs. Salvia was one of them we could get for quite easily, even legally back then, which should not be a legal drug at all. It's probably more powerful than DMT, but I didn't know that then when I was doing these things. But that showed me a thing or two, and that opened me up for the first time to realize, okay, so what I see and isn't all that there is. There's something else going on here, and that kind of triggered for me a journey that's still going on today to understand God and the spirit realm and what's really going on. But not having any context to understand what I saw, having no religion, I naturally went down the spiritualist Eastern philosophy, Jungian archetypical psychological explanation for everything, very much what I suppose you could define it as new age, but I wasn't like a dreadlock, crystal, chakra aligning, yoga doing hippie or anything. I've just never been
Yeah.
that type of person. But I very much was going down the Eastern philosophy route, the understanding that, well, maybe we're all God and we're all God consciousness who has collectively forgot that we're God to experience what it's like to not be God, living in individual lives. But when we die, we all kind of go back to source and like a balloon, we're just in a balloon. And when you pop it, you just go back to the air that was already there. All those silly ideas that you kind of gather when you go down that Eastern philosophical ideology. I was playing around with those concepts, and I was kind of going down that route while also experimenting with these psychedelics. And I just kept doing harder and harder ones, LSD, mushrooms. Then I got to DMT eventually. And this is in between starting an art degree. So I went to university, which I suppose is what you call college in America,
Mhm.
studying fine art. So I've always been an artist. I've always been a creative person. I've been a painter and drawer, sculptor my entire life. I can't remember a time I wasn't creative. It's not work for me. It's not hard. It just is what I can just do it. So that's the route I went through in life. And being that observant, nature loving, observant drawing type person, I was trying to capture the psychedelic experience in a way to communicate it to people who don't understand, because all a part of this journey to find God thing. But then
I
suddenly, sorry,
I've
go
got a
ahead.
quick question. Yeah, I got
Go.
a quick question on the. Well, it's funny. Just everything you said is like. I feel like you're in your 30s, right?
I'm 32 now, yeah.
Okay, I'm 31. So just it's interesting. We didn't even grow up in the same country, but that's like a very like I had a very similar journey,
Mm.
basically. You know, anti-religious, experimenting with drugs, trying to like figure these things out. Very like interested in the spiritual reality, but yeah, view religion as stupid or a cult or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's interesting to just hear the parallels because I feel like a lot of our generation, millennials, kind of had a similar, steps towards, just looking for truth. I don't know what the reason is for that. But during your experiences with drugs, I don't know if you've ever talked about this. I know you mentioned you saw jesters. What were your experiences like? Did they start good and they progressively got worse? Did you have bad experiences at a certain point? Was it a mixture? Was there one that made you stop? Like, is there anything that sticks out?
Well, like I say, first of all, to the first point, yes, my story is pretty much everyone's story who's been in this world, mainly millennials my same age. There seems to be, I think I'll blame Joe Rogan. There seems to be a wave of people who were involved in that kind of worldview. And I get a lot of people telling me, your story is basically just my story. And I'm not saying I'm unique. Maybe we're not. Maybe we're all going through something together for a reason. I don't know. And I think that's why my work speaks to a lot of people. And most of this book is a love letter to people like us who went through these experiences, mainly the psychedelic community. I'm trying to reach out to them and say, I get the journey you're on. I know what you're looking for, but you're not going to find the answer in the drugs. The answer is through Jesus Christ and what happened with God. And I'm trying to tell you how I got there from a place where there was no reason for me to get there. It's kind of that's where the truth leads you inevitably. So I get that point as well. Now, in terms of my experiences with psychedelics, I mean, my first one was salvia when I was 16, and it was like 40 times salvia. It was really strong. And I did go to another dimension, and it scared the crap out of me. If you wanted to find something like a bad trip, that was a bad trip. The other, the only thing I said was no, and then I was gone for 10 minutes, and you
Hmm.
could see, my face went white, and I was just staring, for 10 minutes, just staring into this void. And that's basically where I went. I went to this place I couldn't comprehend. I couldn't understand what I was looking at. I had no, it shattered everything. It shattered
Hmm.
everything because by that point, I didn't think spiritual things were existed. I didn't. But here I am in a spirit realm, surrounded like tiny little gnome-like people running around everywhere, melding in and out of the landscape in some psychedelic, colorful dancing rhythmic mess of some kind, you know, while my body's numb and spiraling, feels like it's been folded in itself like a Rubik's cube or something. The whole thing was just mental, you know. I didn't know what to do with that, and I didn't touch another psychedelic for a long time after that, you know. It's only when I got to like 20 years old, 19 years old, when I went to university, that I start getting back into that realm, because I started getting access to things like LSD and psilocybin mushrooms, and I was doing MDMA every weekend and experimenting with that with LSD as well. I think they call it candy flipping. I was getting silly with it, but at the same time, my subject matter for my work at university, being an artist, doing an art degree, kind of became about this. And it's odd that the university didn't have an issue with me doing those things and talking about them, to be honest. But fair enough, you know, whatever. I guess that's just the world we live in, isn't it? But I kind of rolled with it, and I ended up obviously going down the conspiracy route as well at the same time in 2012 is when the end of the world was going to happen. The Mayan calendar was going to end. We all remember that mess, you know. And that got my interest. I was like, what are you seeing that's making you make such claims, is what I thought. So I went out there to find out what people were researching and finding, and it was one rabbit hole after another. And before I realized it, you know, the Federal Reserve is corrupt. The whole world is controlled by an evil cabal of satanic, blood drinking, child sacrificing murderers, and we're screwed, you know. So and I was there, you know, before you knew it, and that sets you off on one, you know, and this is how I ended up with the channel 2 years later in 2014. It was a culmination of 3 years worth of work at university studying these topics, the occult, you know, mysticism, and the idea of the hidden secret hand, you know, the secret societies, the sacred geometry in the universe mixed in with the psychedelic work I was doing as well, you know, and this exploration. And, you know, again, all of it really fundamentally was a personal journey to try and get closer to God. I wanted to know the truth. I wanted to know what was going on. I wanted to have the answers. What's happening? Why are we here? You know, the usual stuff that everyone's trying to figure out in those early formative years of your life. And I guess I just went a little bit hardcore with it more than other people would have with the drugs. But my trips were always informative. And I'm not trying to endorse them as though, so do them, you'll be safe. Because I think I got very lucky. And I think, just like my entire life, something was looking after me.
Right.
Just my experience is not what everyone else experiences. I always went to the place where these beings reside, but the beings never came to me. That was always the case. It was always an empty landscape, devoid of other life other than myself. But I kept continuously bumping into trip reports of people encountering entities that always look like jesters or clowns or green women, or there's variants, you know. Clockwork machine elves was Terence McKenna's kind of famous way of describing these things. But for me, I never saw that. While next to me, my friend who's tripping is seeing people dancing in the walls, as he says. You know, but I'm not seeing this. I just kept going to these places, fully aware of who I was, not really losing myself, and just observing and seeing the function behind it all. And I'm like, okay, so I'm still on Earth. Wherever this isn't a place outside of Earth. It is the Earth. And it's kind of like code that projects our reality, is what I kind of figured out. I'm in the plumbing of the universe. Like, this place is perfectly normal. It's supposed to be here. Without this, there wouldn't be where I am now. You know, that they worked in tandem with one another, you know. But you're not really supposed to see it. Because it's not useful to see any of it, because it's just like being inside a projector. So how's that? Don't you want to be in the projection? Isn't that the place you want to actually be, experiencing the thing, you know? And that's where these Nephilim creatures are that everyone else was seeing, but I wasn't seeing them, and I think I was being protected.
So you never saw one?
Only when I quit.
Oh.
This is what happened to me. This is what led me onto a lot of my work and made me a believer in the end of Christ. But at the end of university, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no direction in life. I had no answers. You know, I was terrified that the world was trying to kill me, because obviously the whole conspiracy thing I'd just discovered, and it's a bit messes
It's
you up.
It's very overwhelming.
Yeah, it messes you up.
When you first learn it, when you first learn, if you actually see it and you understand, and you have especially no faith. It's very dark.
Exactly. I was black-pilled is one way to describe it, you know, and I was angry and scared and had no answers, probably utterly burnt out synapse-wise from all this experimentation for 3 years straight, you know, and I was no closer to understanding the truth of the matter. But because I had been in the conspiracy world for 3 years, just seeping myself in all this conspiracy knowledge, I kept bumping into, amidst watching things like Zeitgeist, I also kept bumping into the Christian perspective to explain everything. And most of it was centered around the idea that tribulation's about to come upon us. There was a lot of that going on back then. The signs of the times are here, and Jesus is about to return. Now, I didn't know what to make of that necessarily, but I did want to understand the gospel more, because I thought it seems to contextualize the conspiracy quite well. This whole Book of Enoch, fallen angels mating with human women, creating giant offspring. These offspring subjugated mankind in the ancient world. Then they became disembodied spirits after killing each other. They became demons. Then there was a flood after mankind messed with their own DNA for a little bit. And I was just following this story, this narrative, and I was like, this actually explains a lot. It explains where we have these bloodlines today and where they claim their lineage back to the angels from. It's all kind of succinctly explained through the biblical narrative, but I didn't want to go there. I was like, no, that can't be the truth. That the Christians cannot be right, is what I was basically thinking most of the time. And I just didn't want to go there. I was still looking for the this can all be explained with psychological, archetypical symbology and the collective unconscious or something like that. The answer's within me. It's not out there in Christianity. I can do it myself. I'm a god type of attitude, hubris and pride. I didn't want to go down the Christian route, but by the time I got to this broken down point, I'd heard enough about the Christian angle and listened to enough preachers and people telling me the gospel to know what I needed to do, and that's what I did. I just said at one of my lowest points, all right, God, if you're real, show me. Let's do this, because I've got nothing. I'm nowhere. I have nothing. I have no direction. I don't know who I am. What's going on? What's my purpose? I know nothing. I don't know what's going on. I'm at the end of my degree. I'm about to go into the real world, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Help me. And he did. From that day, everything changed, and I mean in a real tangible way. The conviction of the Holy Spirit came upon me is the only way I can describe it. Whenever I would do things that I used to hedonistically enjoy doing, such as smoking weed or smoking cigarettes or drinking or casual sex or partying or whatever it was, I would feel condemned. It would come upon me, this guilt that I'd never felt before. It's kind of like, and it's like a still quiet voice in the back of my mind kind of saying, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? This is not what I had in mind for you. It's that kind of, like my father was disappointed in me. I felt that shame, and I never really felt that kind of thing before, ever, and from that day, it was there. It was really tangibly there. And if you want to talk about being born again, I guess this is the experience. It's a real thing. Like suddenly what you used to enjoy as the old creature is burnt away and you become this new thing, this new creation. And it took a while. It took years, to shed the old skin, shall we say, or burn off the chaff, and like a forest fire, get rid of all the old bark so you can have a new forest that grows. And it's a painful experience. I had to let go of a lot of things I didn't want to let go of, But I stayed strong in the word and I studied biblical history really hard. I got really into the whole antediluvian stuff, the Nephilim stuff. And I really went into the channel hard, understanding conspiracy, and was interviewing people left, right, and center, trying to get to grips with the conspiracy culture. So we have these factions everywhere. You've got the Christians over here, the New Agers over there, the alt-right over there. You've got like this ultra left-wing liberal, we are the 1% anonymous group over here. You got the whistleblowers, and I was kind of like breaking down the whole thing, trying to get to grips with the holistic image of what the conspiracy culture even is and trying to understand the conspiracy, And I kept finding the answer's only in the biblical perspective. Everything else is a distraction. And I didn't want that to be the answer. That just kept being the answer. He kept coming back to that. And my faith just got stronger and stronger. But then at the same time, because I had given up all these drugs and drinking and everything, I became completely sober, basically, And I was still like addicted to nicotine, but I'd switched to an e-cigarette. I was lowering the strength every month, and I quit cannabis cold turkey, everything like that. I hadn't touched another psychedelic since that day, And I just didn't drink anymore. Everything, I was a completely different person, but that's when I started to get what you would call demonically attacked or oppressed. That's when I started. Are you tired of the same old conversations? Do you often find yourself struggling to know what to say? Are you over discussing the news, sports ball, or the weather?
It's time to put boring discussions behind you by leaving a copy of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns on your coffee table, your toilet, your local library, mother's car, boss's office desk, or that person you really like's bed instead.
What the hell is this?
Oh, that? Why, it's just a book about how the modern costume of a clown is a caricature of ancient giants and modern demons.
Stay away from my children.
This is a conversation you can't wait to have.
My family used to think I was crazy, but thanks to The Nephilim Look Like Clowns, they know I'm crazy.
The Nephilim looks like clowns. It's no laughing matter.
Demonically attacked or oppressed. That's when I started having sleep paralysis and being pinned down in my sleep by the old hag on the chest type of stuff. You know, that's when I was having these horrible nightmares and dreams of being chased, you know, by demons. The Hat Man was one of them. And then randomly I had a flashback, we would call this in the DMT community, which is where you just suddenly end up back in the DMT realm for no reason. Like you haven't even done the drug.
Awake?
Yeah, awake. Yeah, I was awake. I think I was at work. I can't remember where I was, but I was working in a call center at the time, I think. Or something. I don't know what I was doing, but I was just suddenly in the DMT realm for like 10 seconds. But this time I was stood in front of a giant jester. And it's the first time I've ever seen it, but I knew where I was. I recognized the place because I've been there plenty of times before. So it's kind of like, okay, so I'm in the DMT realm, but this time I'm looking up at this enormous black and white lined, purple-lipped, huge glowing-eyed jester monster with a big wide grin and a skull shaped like spider's legs hanging down, you know. And I'm like, it's not wearing a jester's costume. Its skin just is that color. You know what I mean? It's like, what is this? And I was looking up at it, and then I'm back. I didn't. What do I do with that? I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that at the time. You know, I was like, okay, so the real then. I've seen a DMT jester. Great. Not that I wanted to or anything, you know, but there it is. And then it's in the midst of all these demonic, oppressive, horrible visions that kept coming upon me. And one evening, I was at my mum and dad's house dog sitting, okay, and I was there with my dog next to me, watching TV. It was innocuous. I don't know what I was watching, but it was nothing important. I wasn't even watching the TV. I was probably on my phone or something. And suddenly, I went paralyzed and kind of just collapsed onto the arm of the chair. And I'm staring out, unable to move, and darkness starts to seep in from the corner of my vision, and I'm going blind. And all I could think is, I'm dying. I must be having a stroke or something, or a brain aneurysm. I don't know what's going on. I'm dying. I can't move. I'm paralyzed and my vision's going black. And then like a spiraled mandala portal was kind of crunching open in front of me, and I could feel like a pull, like something was pulling me into it, like trying to tear my soul from my body or something like that. I don't know. That's what it felt like.
Was this before or after you were saved?
Oh, after.
After.
It's like this is after that day. All of this stuff came after I was saved.
Like immediately after?
This is about a year later. So
okay.
This is after the dreams, the jester vision, all this sort of stuff, you know. And all I could think to do in that moment is just scream, but I'm whispering, but in my head I'm screaming, Jesus, save me. I managed to say it audibly, just quietly, because I'm paralyzed. You know, it was hard. And instantly it stops, and I'm back, and I sit up, and I'm panting, I'm sweating, I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with that. But something tried to kill me. Something spiritual tried to kill me that day, and I can't prove that to anybody or anything. I can just tell you what happened to me. That happened to me.
Yeah.
And from that day, my faith was pretty much solidified. I'm like, okay, so Jesus is real. There's power in his authority and name. And we're in the middle of a spiritual war where there's literal invisible entities trying to kill us. And it's kind of, where do I go from there? Well, let's find out what's going on. You know, so that's where, like I said, this is where I really did seep into the whole, let's get to the bottom of where these things came from. What are they? Let's know our enemy. Spiritual warfare is real. What can we do to defend ourselves? So my channel kind of took a hard turn into that route. And then that's when I started having these connections coming to me about the jesters, demons, Nephilim. They look like jesters on DMT, but these have to be the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. So the Nephilim look like jesters, and then the clown sightings happen. And it's all kind of led me down to this odd route where synapses just fired and connections were made. And I just started looking into the history of a clown. And I started looking into cultures who venerate the Nephilim or demons, and you start to see these patterns emerge. And like I said, the rest is history. It turns out, yes, the Nephilim didn't look like giant tanned Conan the Barbarian, loincloth wearing, dreadlocked henchmen, you know what I mean? Which you often saw depictions of back in the day. They were psychedelic, terrifying, half dragon, half human hybrid monsters, and they looked like clowns by any description of a Western standard. Now, don't people get hung up on clowns and like the way clowns behave and all silly? It's kind of like forget about the way they behave. Just look at the aesthetics. Let's just
Right.
focus on looks and draw that pattern. Forget about what a clown's supposed to be like from your opinion as a child or something. Just solely off looks and aesthetics, they're identical to all these other cultures and the way they practice their veneration of ancestor spirits. It's the same costume, and it was invented on purpose in the 1800s by Freemasons. So there you go.
It's crazy stuff. Yeah, that's there's so much there. I definitely can relate to the kind of demonic oppression that follows being saved, and that's a common thing in Christianity. I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
When the second you start to submit to Christ, you're like a target, and it's you know, if you're not a believer, listening to that should be expected, and that's why you need to have people around you that are they've been through it and they can kind of guide you through. It's the importance of fellowship and community. You need elders, you need people in your life who are more mature in the faith. They've been where you are and where you're going. And because these things happen to everybody. And there is spiritual war. There is, you know, there's an enemy, you know, there's an enemy that's trying to oppress you, control you, make your life miserable in every single way, and lead you down a path that Jesus said the enemy is here to kill, steal, and destroy. So that's what it wants to do to your life. And you need the Lord in your life to prevent those things from happening. And you need other believers too, because that's where our strength is. That is what the church is. It's not a building. It's people that also believe in the Lord and are walking the same path as you.
Absolutely. And I think I've helped create that community online. Because I'm not a church going Christian. I wasn't raised in a church. And first of all, just to reiterate the point you made, you're right. There isn't a single human being alive who has not encountered the demonic or the spiritual realm in some way. And a lot of them might not want to talk about it because they don't want to get shunned by the community or laughed at or, you know, considered crazy by their loved ones. But everybody has dealt with the demons at some point. And we're trying to tell them, just call on Jesus when that happens. You'll be fine. This is your weapon. It's real, you know, and it's like I said, it's a faith solidifying moment when you actually see that power and put it into practice, you know. So I implore anybody who's listening who may be on the fence about all of this, when the demonic inevitably comes for you, because it just happens, you know, call on Jesus and just see what happens. Like you can scoff and laugh now, but you know, in those moments, you won't be laughing. You'll be doing it, okay? And I hope you do, and you'll see. You'll see it's real. So just to finalize that idea, you know. But community is a great point. It helps to have fellow Christians to kind of be there for you, to pray for you, to build you up, and to keep you strong in your faith. And I don't find that in the churches because I can't relate to the churchianity versions of Christians. And I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just doesn't work for me.
Well, a lot of them were invented by the Freemasons, like started by that. And I think that a lot of those organized churches are actually designed to keep people in bondage. But I think Max is kind of alluding to like true friendship, spiritual friendship. Friendship is different than like an organized church. It's like a real bond. Yeah,
people that are there to collect 10% of your paycheck versus a genuine friend who is, you know, wants to just pray for you, you know, very different power in that.
It's like brothers and sisters in Christ, we call each other, because it's literally like that. We're the same. We're part of the same body. It's not a building. It's not an organization. It's not a hierarchical system where there's somebody at a pulpit who has to tell you what the book says. It's fellowship between where one or more are gathered in their name, where two or more are gathered in their name. Simple as that. That's a church. And like I said, I've started a Telegram group recently. And it's got 1,500 people in there now. and they're my people. I think we're all
Yeah.
each other's people, and we're all just people trying to figure out the truth from a conspiratorial Christian contrarian viewpoint, which isn't welcome in churches. That we're not welcome in those type of places.
Yep. Yep.
It's very much a milk toast type of Christianity, especially in the UK. Sure, you'll get the gospel, which is great, but you'll never learn much about the control or the evil in the world or anything like that. It'll always be more you centric, focused on your own personal salvation, what you need to get better, and all these type of things. And that's fair enough. There's a place for that, but it's very condemning. It's very negative when you actually start hearing that all the time, you know. And what we're saying is, yes, you need to do the personal work. You need to change. You need to be born again. But also, we have an enemy out there which you need to be aware of. And these churches don't talk about that. They don't mention that. And it's kind of, it's not all our fault. Yeah, we're not, humans are flawed and we need work. Yes, we do have an enemy that's like a roaring lion out there seeking whoever they may devour. And it's kind of, if you don't know about them, you're food for them.
Yeah.
You're ignorant. You're still in the pen, aren't you? You're not really aware that you're a prey to a predator. It's the worst position to be in, you know. And I did try the church thing, but they thought I was odd. Let's put it that way. I could tell they weren't my people necessarily, you know. And what works for them doesn't work for me. It's more like how do I describe it? Because Britain's different from America. We're very different. Like our churches are not the same. Nobody does Christianity like an American. Okay, but here in the UK, we're very much you don't talk about religion or politics at the dinner table type people. To keep that to yourself in your own houses. You know what I mean? And
America used to be more like that, but it's gone now. It's out the window. All that culturally, people will tell you what they think unsolicited. In person too. So
maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. I don't know. I think we're two extremes here. In
extremes.
In England, it's like you don't talk about it, and if you do, it better be politically correct. You know, it's kind of we're very much scared to have an opinion in the UK because we don't have a freedom of speech amendment like you guys do. We don't have the right to say what we think. We don't have that right. Like it was never there either. There's things you can say and things you can't say in our law. It's as simple as that, really. And that's always changing and getting more and more authoritarian by the day. But religion is more of it's dying here. Like especially Christianity, the churches are empty. They're all being closed. They're all becoming decrepit and empty and boarded up. You know what I mean? Because there's just no attendance because we just don't have any reference today to understand how it's relevant to a modern advancing civilization as we've been narratively programmed to believe we're in, you know, always evolving to the next thing. It is kind of, what does the church fit into this future? Well, it doesn't. And I think this type of research, you know, really helps bridge that gap to a new generation of why it's still relevant. Like Christianity really is more relevant today than ever. Spiritual warfare is more prevalent today than ever. And you can see it. You just don't understand what you're looking for. So the clown, luckily, is like a hook for a lot of people. And I don't care about clowns. I really don't. Like, I'm not like somebody who like followed Insane Clown Posse or was obsessed with the Joker or something. Or I literally never give them a second thought in my entire life until I have to start doing it for this thing. You know, I just fell into this research, should we say. It just kind of came.
God called you.
Yeah,
in a way, yeah.
God appointed you to bring this topic to the light.
For sure, yeah.
Well, in hindsight, looking back, it seems like an odd series of events happened to get me where I am today. And you know, let's give glory to God for that, because it's working. Because I do think I get people message me saying it's this body of research that has re-solidified the faith that they had lost, or had given the answers they needed to make that leap to get to believing in Christ. Because up until like understanding the demonic aspect and the warfare aspect, what relevance does a man being nailed to a piece of wood have to me? Like people can't make that leap. It's like, why does that matter? How does that change anything? What does it even mean to be saved? What am I being saved from exactly? All these questions that I had, I've tried to answer now. And I feel like you can get the answers if you go down this, not church route, but you go down this Christian, contrarian, non-denominational conspiracy route into Christianity. You'll get those answers, you know, and you're not going to find it in those stuffy buildings with those corrupt people running them who are it's money primarily that's corrupted those places. And
money and control,
they have a script they have to stick to.
They're
Otherwise, they
steering they're steering their congregation towards something, like I've heard you talk about, which I agree with. Before we get
well,
into any more like outside the clown, is it
mm,
okay if I share the slideshow? Because
absolutely.
I
Yeah,
feel like we're gonna get into like lots of different topics. Okay, let me share the screen really quick.
sure thing.
All right,
You
how do I?
might want to go here first.
Okay,
Exit here.
got my tech support with me. All right, which one should I do? Like this?
Yes.
I
Oh,
think I think
How's
if
it
you
gonna
hit screen share at the bottom,
like that? No, no, no. This one.
let's try it.
Okay, wait. This one. This one. Let's try this one. Okay.
Optimize for video clip. What is this? Okay.
Share sound, optimize for video clip. I'm just gonna. Do you know much about this? Should I hit share sound and optimize for video clip?
um, well, I
Or
can't
just
see what comes up right now because I can't share. But usually when I hit share, it shows you windows you already have open, and you can select one of those windows to project to all of us.
all right.
And
I'm just gonna go
that's
for it
it.
here.
Whatever you've
Let's
just
see what
done there,
happens.
there it is. I can see
Okay.
it now. But you
You can
guys
see the
are,
screen
yeah, you're overlaid over it though, for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on there.
completely over it.
Well, you're kind of you're
Hang
blocking
on,
most of
stop
it.
share. Yeah,
All
I
right.
think that's the wrong like setting. So
Okay,
real
let's
quick,
try
try one more
again.
time. Just do this first one.
Okay. All right. What about now?
Perfect.
It's good?
All good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is my hopefully fun addition to the work you've done. Maybe you'll get to use some of this or basically this is the first time I just put this together yesterday. It went on for longer than I expected. Lacey
Yeah.
hasn't seen it either. So if either I want this to be like conversational, if either one of you have something to chime in, just stop me and let me know. But this is going to be clowns in rock and roll history, basically. So
Sure.
here we go. All right. So I wanted to start with a popular rock band. This is an American rock band, Kiss. I don't know how popular they are in the UK, but they started in '72 by Stanley. I don't know how to say his last name, and Chaim Witz, both Jewish guys, joined by Peter Chrysoula. I don't know how to say his name either, and Paul for Healy, and they were two Christian guys, but they all adopted stage names when they started the band. The most popular one would be Gene Simmons. A lot of people know who that is. He's the one with the long tongue.
Hmm.
Um, Throughout the '70s, they grew to be, one of the biggest bands in the world. And not really, they weren't known really for their music even too much. I mean, they had some hits, but really it was their image. This clown makeup look was the reason that they became so popular,
Hmm.
especially in America, but around the world. They were popular enough for all of them to have a solo album. And I didn't even know this, but they actually ended up mixing their own blood into a Marvel comic book or into ink that would be made into Marvel comic books. And I've been learning from you and from our buddy Vitaly from Alpha Talks about the connection between superheroes and the Nephilim as well. So I
Hmm.
thought this all kind of ties together. So you can see Kiss had their own comic book made. I don't know if this was the '70s or the '80s, but there's actual proof. There's them getting their blood drawn to be put into this comic book. So this was some kind of ritual, obviously. I don't know what the purpose of it was. Um, but yeah, they had a custom comic book made with their blood, and somebody wrote about this saying that artists should be expected to make sacrifices for their work in order to forge a special relationship with their readers or their fans. So some kind of ritual going on here. I just thought this was really strange and crazy, and the connection between the superheroes that I
Yeah.
recently learned about um,
No, you're right. Yeah, but well,
was interesting.
I'm
Oops.
pretty sure. Does it mean knights in Satan's service? Is that what KISS stands for as well?
I don't
I,
know.
I've
Is
heard
that
that
what it's
one.
saying? Knights in Satan's service.
I think that's supposed to be what it represents. I've heard that plenty of times before. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty typical of like a lot of Indian gods as well, Kali. But the tongue sticking out is actually really ubiquitous across all cultures where they represent the Nephilim. It's actually everywhere. It's even in the center.
Tongue.
Yeah, it's in the center of the Aztec calendar. They have a being with its tongue sticking out. They say it's supposed to represent a sun god, but they don't actually know what it represents. They actually don't know. They just assume it was that. But it's also identical to the way the Gorgons are represented in Greece with the tongue sticking out. A lot of Hindu gods and goddesses have their tongue sticking out as well.
Yeah.
You'll find the tongue sticking out is common for the Rakshasa demons in India, the Rakshas in Sri Lanka and Bali as well. It goes across all cultures. It's the tongue sticking out and the Nephilim have always been linked, intrinsically linked. So when he's doing this, it's just more of the same thing. Yeah.
It's pretty obvious what's going on there. And so the other thing that's you're going to see continued, but the name change. So they all changed their name when they started the band, every single member.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition to that, they have a persona or a spirit that they take on while they're performing, and it has a name as well. So Gene Simmons is the demon when he's on stage. Star Child, Spaceman, Catman, the Fox. They literally have some kind of entity that they're welcoming in when they put on the makeup and they get on the stage, and they, it's all right in front of you. They'll tell you it. The most obvious and well-known one is going to be Gene Simmons, like we're talking about with the long tongue. And he's known for spitting fire, vomiting blood on stage.
Kind of like a dragon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
It's funny he said then as well, this band like became like legends, gods even by any standard, world renowned. Like everyone knows who Kiss is, and they are worshipped like gods among men, and I know I don't know if any of them have died yet. When these people start to die, they're going to be venerated and have a god's funeral. They are going to be considered like just ascended masters of humanity in some respect. They're going to be considered the greatest musicians to ever exist. And I'm going to tell you now, I think they're awful. I think they're crap. I think the music's so underrated. Well, overrated. It's just
overrated.
It's garbage. It's garbage music. You know what I mean? There's no talent behind it, really. It's 4 chord progressions. There's nothing to it. The only reason they've been elevated is because of the way they look.
Right.
And the point is, they make idols out of people who look like this in the industry. So other people looking to make it in the industry will emulate them.
Exactly.
And then the general public with no talent or understanding whatsoever will also emulate them and dress like them and act like them for Halloween or whatever it is, or idolize them as gods and dress like them on a regular basis. But the point always was, get as many people as possible dressing in this way, because that's where the secret lies.
Right.
What you wear is not a joke. It really is. And these other cultures know it. They dress this way to specifically channel spirits.
Yes.
Okay. Just because we don't know that that's what happens when you dress a specific way doesn't mean we're immune to that somehow. The more people they can get dressing in this way, the more channels they're going to open, the more gateways to demons to come into our realm through people's bodies are being opened. And it's very simple math, really. It's a simple technique as well. And these people are just in the game of encouraging other people to copy them. So they aren't elevated by talent. They're elevated just by the way they look. And a Freemason comes along, sees this up and coming band with this aesthetic and goes, put them in the spotlight. We want more people dressing like them. Let's make them famous. Let's make them gods. And it's all orchestrated by the people in control for that specific reason. And these people probably think they were chosen because they were special. They think they're actually good. They probably don't even know. They're probably patsies most of the time, who are completely ignorant of what's going on. Or maybe they do know.
They might have family ties. I mean, that's what I looked into.
Perhaps.
Gene Simmons was born in, I briefly looked into he was born in Israel, and his family moved over here. So I don't know what, their lineage is and the family that they're a part of or anything. But if you look into the history of each person, they're usually connected to someone somehow. Okay, so Kiss, it was kind of rock. We're going to go into a very famous singer-songwriter, musician, actor, David Bowie.
Hmm.
Obviously, we got the red hair, the makeup, red lips. Um, he became, one of the most popular and innovative artists in the 70s as well. And he kind of introduced glam rock, where it's this, androgynous, flamboyant character. And again, we see taking on a literal character name, Ziggy Stardust. If you don't know David Bowie, this album made him very famous, and he introduced a character rather than just him. So when he would perform music videos, songs, he was Ziggy Stardust.
Hmm.
So again, it's that clown costume with a character, and everything we've been talking about, you understand why.
Hmm.
Um, but the first album was the song Starman, and I put the lyrics on the next slide. Let's see. So there's a starman waiting in the sky. He'd like to come and meet us, but he thinks he'd blow our minds. There's a starman waiting in the sky. He told us not to blow it because he knows it's all worthwhile. And I thought that this could be somehow connected to um, the New Jerusalem, floating city. Um, there's a lot of different things going on there, or possibly again, Vitaly was telling me that the gods and the Nephilim of old, they also might have had a floating city that they ruled from as well, because
Hmm.
they imitate what God does. So that all those things kind of, light bulbs were going off. The other thing I noticed too that was interesting, that's kind of unrelated, but there's Kay West on the album cover of Ziggy Stardust, and I don't know if that Kanye West was being somehow tied to this at all, but
I was just thinking that before you mentioned it. Yeah, I was
yeah,
like,
it's all very strange.
it is. Yeah, well, David Bowie is another great example I've used many times on my own,
Oh, you have, okay.
and he's another one who's been elevated to godlike status even in death. And all of his music videos have been ridiculously occult. I think this guy knew full well what he was doing. Like he knew
Yeah,
what he was doing, and when he
he
introduced the
was.
character, and it's also transactional. Like I said, he channels the demon by dressing this way. The demon takes over his vessel because he's a willing channel, and then the demon gets the adulation and the worship as though it's a god again, like it used to be when it was alive and a giant walking around the earth, subjugating mankind and ruling over them as a king. So it's kind of the demons crave that kind of thing again, and
Yeah.
the deal is, okay, well, I'll give you talent, the ability to play guitar and sing and all these type of things. I'll give you magical powers, basically, and it'll make you a star and famous and rich in this world if you let me use your body. And
Mhm.
then and while I'm using your body, I want you to drink the blood. I want you to be on stage and let the adulation come to me. I want to feel that power again. And there's loads of things. Probably all have each demon has their own individual needs and desires and wants, but that's what the deal is. That's the deal. And
Yeah.
the music industry is full of it.
Full
It's
of it.
it's ridiculous. Like you said, it's went on way longer than you thought it would, because that's what
Yep.
happens when you start doing this research. It goes on way longer. And just to obviously talk about clowns here, it's all about aesthetics. Now, Iggy Stardust isn't a clown.
Right.
It's a star man. It's a spaceman. But when
Yep.
you break down the aesthetics, pale white skin and red hair with multicolored patterns, like the clothing he often wore, that's a clown costume. Okay,
Yep.
by any stretch. But what it really is we just call it clown like because that's what we've been programmed to understand it as. It really is Nephilim like.
Yeah.
Clowns look like Nephilim. It's the other way around. My book should be called The Other Thing, but it doesn't roll off the tongue as well as the Nephilim look like clowns. But really,
Right.
truly, this is a model of what the Nephilim were. They had pale white skin, red hair, and serpent like skin inherited from the dragon seraphim parent angel fathers. So they were very psychedelic, colorful creatures. They had colorful patterns all over their skin and red lips. Like imagine a lizard with lips. It would look pretty weird. Okay, lizards don't have lips primarily, but you merge it with a human, you're going to get a lizard with lips. It will look weird, but also at the same time, serpents have big, wide maws. They open their mouth they dislocate their jaw to eat their prey, snakes. And I think the Nephilim would have had an equally wide, weird looking red lip, thin lip thing going on, which is why they always paint the lips red. They're trying to emulate something. They're trying to mimic something. They're trying to make themselves look like something to mirror what it is in the spirit realm. If you mirror something in the spirit realm, you create a channel. It's like an ancient practice. It's well understood everywhere else but the West. Like, we have this stupid, naive view in the West, which can't be correct because everywhere else does not believe this. That if you dress like a demon, you're scaring it away. Ooh, you know, you're warding off evil by dressing like evil. It's like, what kind of naive, pardon my French, retarded view is that? Like, that is childlike naivety at its ultimate ridiculous nature. I can't believe people genuinely think dressing like an ancient, thousands of years old demon is going to confuse it and scare it away. Like, why would you believe that crap? Like, honestly, think about it. When everywhere else who does this practice says, I'm channeling the demon into my body. Why does it suddenly change when you cross the borders into Europe? Why would the practice suddenly no longer be? You can't both be right, is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to trust these other cultures who are telling you why they're doing it.
At first, I just thought people couldn't financially justify hiring a clown anymore, you know? Then I started blaming the media for portraying my people as bloodthirsty murderers, cult members, or man-eating space aliens. Of course, the 2016 clown sightings didn't help. Ronald was the first to go. They just took him away. And we stayed silent. Because that's when the book appeared. What new form of clown bigotry was this, I thought? Hadn't my people suffered enough? My clown act was failing because people just weren't taking it seriously. And once they fired me from the circus, I tried suing them for funfair dismissal. My unicycle rusted, and my balls gathered dust. I used to make kids scream with laughter, you know. So much that I could see the tears of joy running down their faces. And then it just stopped. I was so upset that I started eating the banana cream pies instead of throwing them in people's faces. I gained so much weight that summer. I avoided it for a while, but the book's front cover was just so eye-catching, and it was so readily available on Amazon, that I gave in and finally read the thing. I didn't even know what the Nephilim were. Luckily, the author spent the first half of the book concisely explaining the biblical history to me, in an easy-to-understand manner. So that wasn't really a problem for long. That's when I read the rest of the book, and realized that being a clown is no joke.
So just because we think we're dressing like a demon to scare away a demon doesn't mean that's what's happening. We're likely just letting them in, you know. And go ahead. So I got angry there. Go ahead.
Don't dress like a demon or Paul's gonna get you.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you know though? I know you mentioned David Bowie. Did you get into this? Before he was David Bowie, he was David Jones, and he was a mime.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I did know that. Yeah, I've not mentioned it before, but yeah.
That was like, wow. Okay, he's been at this, that way before he became what everybody knows him as. And again, you've got the name change, and he, this has been a longer practice, and there's something else going on there that's pretty obvious.
Well, the funny thing about mimes is they're always depicted as being trapped in a box, an invisible box, and they're silent and no one can hear them, you know what I mean, no matter how loud they scream. And it's kind of, if you want to talk about a metaphorical symbol for disembodied spirits trapped in a realm where no one can hear or see them, then you've got it right there, just in the metaphor of a mime in itself, which
is crazy.
And that version of a mime, which is popularized through modern media and TV, is a very modern symbol. A creation. Prior to that, mimes were kind of based off of Poirot of French commedia dell'arte movement, developing out of the Italian tradition. Mimes have been around since Rome, but mimes were primarily mimics. They mimicked people. That's what a mime used to be, you know.
Mhm.
This idea of a silent mime trapped in a void, that's very new. It's very new, and it's like as the symbol of a clown developed throughout history over time, it got more and more symbolic
Closer
of the
to the,
Nephilim. Yeah,
yeah.
more refined as a symbol. You know what I mean? But go ahead.
Okay. So Alice Cooper was actually before both Kiss and David Bowie.
Mhm.
He's known as kind of like the godfather of shock rock, which is just theatrical rock music. They do shocking things on stage. The whole purpose of their style is to, surprise the audience. But again, he brought in this clown aesthetic to all
Yeah,
of his performances. And you probably know, I forgot what the top hat means. Is that a
it's
Freemason thing?
it is. It's actually the Crown of Solomon specifically, and you can go find this out by typing in. Go to like a mainstream Freemason website where they tell you about their stuff and they tell you the public understood meaning behind their own symbols. And they'll tell you, oh, yeah, the top hat is only allowed to be worn by the worshipful Grand Master of the Lodge, the leader, because it represents the crown of Solomon, who's the leader. Okay, so that's what they'll tell you outright. Not even hidden knowledge. Not even very. It's
Right.
not hidden. That's all it is. But it isn't interesting that the only one who's allowed to orchestrate the rituals in a lodge is the one who wears the hat. Specifically, more traditionally, a black top hat. In Texas, they wear like a cowboy hat. It's kind of they have a regional idea behind it, but traditionally, everywhere else, it's a top hat, a black top hat. And it's funny, isn't it, that when you get to a circus, the ring leader is also a
Yeah.
black top hat wearing orchestrator of the ritual, shall we say. He's King Solomon. The ringleader
Mhm.
is King Solomon, just in a circus setting rather than a Freemasonic hall setting. In fact, everything about circuses is a copy of Freemasonic rituals, just on a grand public scale. The ringmaster, or the Lord of the Ring, is King Solomon, who was given a magical ring to control the demons to build his temple, according to some Jewish traditions and mythologies. So the ringleader is the one who orchestrates the circus ritual and the clowns instead of the demons. So the demons are the analog for the demons, and the clowns are just interchangeable. Solomon orchestrated the demons. The ringmaster orchestrates the clowns. It's just metaphor, just public occulted hidden metaphor of Freemasonic demon invocation rituals. It's kind of disturbing actually when you get into it, and that's what the original circuses of America were modeled after. You'll find actually one of the most famous ringleaders was P.T. Barnum, Phineas Taylor Barnum. The Greatest Showman is that stupid film that was made about him, which does not show the truth at all about what that man really was. You know, it makes him out to be some kind of loving, caring, kind of inclusive person who was trying to break down barriers of the time. No, he was a charlatan and an evil, manipulative bastard through and through, and always was. You know, but he was actually a member of the ODD, the Odd Fellows, the Order of the Odd Fellows, and he invented the three ring circus. Originally, it was just one ring. He said, "Let's make it bigger," you know. So he said three rings. It's not a coincidence that the main logo for the Odd Fellows is three interlocking rings, a chain. Okay, so he just copied his lodge ritual symbols into the circus, and everything about a circus, all of it, is just analog for Freemasonic rituals.
Is there somehow crossover with that and the Olympic game circles? I don't know.
Well, the Olympic Games is just five interlocking rings, isn't it? So I guess you
Yeah.
could you could say maybe it's an expansion of that. But everything about those rituals, the opening and closing ceremonies, well, the original Olympics was an ode to the gods of Athens, the
Yep.
Greek gods and the pantheons of gods. And it's just a culturally specific version, isn't it? But you know, if you go in, then obviously they are the fallen angels who created demigods, created Nephilim. So it's just an ode to the pagan gods, and we continue that tradition today. We don't really hide it very well because did you see the recent ceremonies? You know, that were the
Yeah.
past five ceremonies that have gone through. You know, the past 20 years, they're all rife with occult 1,000 points of light, Luciferianism, the dawning of a new age of Lucifer and the rise of the phoenix, symbology everywhere. That's all it ever is on repeat over and over and over again, you know. And they even had Dionysus make an appearance, this recent one, didn't they, in France, you know, quite famously and controversially. And because it's always been about that. It's always been about that, but like I said, I guess you could say there's a link to circuses. The modern circus today is the TV, because we don't have traveling circuses that are a big deal anymore. But back then, when circuses were traveling through America for the first time, it's the only thing everybody in the village went to. You don't have
Right.
anything else. The circus comes to town, you go. But when you think about it from this new perspective, they were getting people from cities to get involved with massive Freemasonic demon channeling rituals. They were getting
Mhm.
entire cities involved wherever they traveled. Imagine the impact that would have had on the country's development. Like
Yeah,
dabbling in the occult, traveling around, making people join in with pagan occult ritual. That's massive. That's a big deal. And it's just hidden under this veneer of it's just a bit of fun for the family. Come along, bring the kids. It's kind of that's just
that
the
seems to be the way that things are done now, which is kind of the reason we wanted to do this in general. Is
Hmm.
the it's a deception, and that's how it's a deception to get people to participate in what they are trying to do, whether it's a ritual or
Mhm.
a spell or a mass brainwashing or whatever they're trying to accomplish. People to unwillingly, unknowingly participate.
Well, it's
Um,
I think is it David Icke who said this stupid phrase, but there's probably something to it. It's energy flows where attention goes. Okay,
yeah.
so if you can get as many people as possible involved in a ritual and focusing on it, you make the ritual more powerful, the invocation more a bigger deal. And if you look at like a carnival, this place of spinning wheels, multicolors, flashing lights, constant movement and loud sirens and noises and ring a ding dings everywhere, you know what I mean? And just constant flashing movement and swirling. That's the DMT realm. It literally is a
Mm.
cosmic circus. And it's like, is that not just a mirror again of something spiritual? They're trying to make a place, an environment that's similar to the realm these spirits are trapped within. And it's
Mm.
the circus or the carnival is the home of the clown. Well, the DMT realm, the cosmic carnival, is the home of the Nephilim. It's all just earthly caricatures of symbolic spiritual happenings. And it's
Right.
kind of as above, so below is the occult principle these things follow. If you can create a mirror of something in the physical, of a spiritual concept, you create a connection between the two and you allow things to travel through it. It's like an Ouija board on a mass public scale, basically. And that's what the occult are playing with. This is the secret knowledge. I mean, if you go back to the Book of Enoch, it says Azazel taught the mixture, the tinctures of makeup, basically, and how to use makeup as a tool for witchcraft, basically. And people have always read that and thought, oh, well, it taught women to beautify the eyelids and make themselves attractive to men. It was all about sex. It was all about sexual attraction. That's all makeup was about. But when you look into my research, you realize no, makeup has very little to do with just attracting mates. Like the art of making yourself up to be something you're not is
Yeah.
a occult witchcraft practice of channeling things. Like that's what these tribes do. They apply makeup and dresses to channel spirits. So is it possible what the angels really taught mankind was this is how you communicate with the spirit realm. You need to use this makeup. You need to use these things, playing off these occult principles which are well known to the hidden secret societies of as above, so below. What you mirror in the spiritual, you manifest in the physical. So you dress like a clown, you get demons. It's just logic. And so I think that's what it was really all about, the teaching of makeup by the angels and the watchers, these things that corrupted humanity. Typical that we naturally go towards sex as humans, but it has nothing to do with that. I don't think. I think it has very little
Yeah.
to do with that. In fact, I think it's more to do with
I
this practice.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's that becomes more obvious too the more I did this. I
Yeah.
think it's also connected to um, all the rainbow people things that we see going on today, which
They shall
which
not be
I'll get
named.
into. Yeah, which I'll get into in a few slides from here.
Be
But on a
careful. Be careful. I'm telling you
oh,
now. Be very
okay,
careful with
okay.
what you say. Okay. I'm serious. I'm
I
serious.
won't say much. I'll just allude to it.
You could lose it all. You really could. Just,
uh,
but yeah.
on a somewhat positive note here, I don't know if this is valid or not, but Alice Cooper supposedly has found Christ. He comes from some kind of church background where his dad and his grandfather were involved in some church organization. But like we said earlier, that could be tied to Freemason run organizations that have created churches. That's very possible. But I always have hope that these things are real and
Yeah.
that this man, maybe he did give his life to the Lord and is turning away from whatever things he was into, because that's the whole point. So
Well,
I wanted,
he comes to save the sinners at the end of the day, and yeah, I
yeah,
agree. I agree. He could be saved. Who knows? God
yeah,
knows his heart. It's not for me to judge, and
yep.
I'm never gonna doubt that whether he's saved or not. I don't know the man. You know.
I wanted to add that though, because he was one of the main people that really brought this clown thing into the music world. So he was either, willingly doing it, or he was used as a tool to make it happen. But even somebody, that involved with the stuff we're talking about can find the Lord, or the Lord can find him. Better way to say it.
Is I
Uh,
don't know much. Is he still performing today?
yeah, I believe he's still alive and performing. Yeah.
Mm,
I don't know if I
the
don't
same
know if he's
music.
still. Yeah, I think he does the same music, but he's talked about it. He feels that I've watched many interviews of his, and he asked the Lord like what he should do, and this is his account, that the Lord told him he needs him to be um, still be Alice Cooper and tell the people, or preach the gospel to those people that are lost, and in his world, basically. Like, so
Mm.
he's so many people know him, are fans of him, that are lost souls, people that don't know the Lord. So he's trying to stay in that world and hopefully bring people to God. Um, Again, I don't know the validity of any of it, but
I
I
hope
have
that's
a,
true.
yeah, I
You
hope
know,
it's true.
I like to be optimistic.
Yeah,
Who knows, eh? But I also have the you can't serve two masters thought in my mind as well at the same time. So I don't really,
sure.
yeah. But who knows? But the Lord can use anything bad for good.
Yep.
And like I said, he saved Paul. Like why can't he save Alice Cooper by comparison? It's nothing, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm all for it.
So Arthur Brown, um, he was around in the 60s, and Alice Cooper has been quoted saying, if there was no Arthur Brown, there'd be no Alice Cooper. So he was, even before him, a big influence on his style. Again, flamboyant theatrical performances. You got the clown makeup with some kind of crown on fire.
Mm.
Um, but his big hit was a single called Fire, which I have the lyrics to in the next one. Um, but again, he obviously was really into the clown makeup here. But I literally, the first line of the song is, "I am the god of hellfire, and I bring you fire. I take you to burn." And this was a hit. This was a hit. I wrote it on here. It was number one in the UK and
Mm.
Canada. This is 1968, and number two in the US Hot 100 list. So this wasn't some small underground song. This was a huge hit at the time, and obviously had a big impact on future musicians in the way they dressed, looked, and performed.
Hmm.
Um, and this is why it's important to look at where these things came from. This is obviously some kind of, I don't even know what you want to call it, but it's evil sounding. It's dark. Whatever he's doing is some kind of ritual. Channeling some kind of spirit. The burning and the
Yeah.
saying that he's a god of hellfire. It's pretty obvious what's
Well,
going on.
a lot of artists say, the music is kind of channeled through them. It's automatic
Hmm.
writing. It kind of songs just happen. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
To they don't know where it comes from. They just start singing and playing and writing, and suddenly they've got this song in like 3 minutes flat. And I know that because I've done it when I used to. No, I'm a musician. I play guitar, piano. I was in a band, all these type of things. And the best music well, at the time I wrote was done in minutes. I didn't
Yeah.
slave over it. You know what I mean? For months or anything. It was very quickly and done and happened. Now, in hindsight, the lyrics weren't the best thing. You know what I mean? They weren't very conducive to a biblical lifestyle, should we say? They were quite, and you have to wonder what the spirit behind that thing was. And I think musicians are really vessels for that kind of thing. And
Yeah, I
especially
agree.
if you're dressing like this regularly, you've probably created a very powerful channel, and a spirit could just come in and write a song and make you think you wrote it. Wow, look what I just did in 2 minutes. Aren't I so smart? Feed your ego a little bit, makes you intelligent, feel intelligent, and then you go off and sing this song literally written by a demon, spreading the same demonic message and doctrine without realizing it. And it's again, this is what it means by test the spirits in Christianity. Not just like literally, oh, a spirit's talking to me. I better test what its validity. I mean, there's a spirit behind everything created in this world. Literally, especially art. And you've got to test
Yeah.
the spirit behind any piece of artwork. Like, where did this
Yeah.
come from? Like, exactly. Where did the people call it inspiration? Like, where did that person suddenly get the inspiration to create this thing from? In a way, honestly, as an artist with a degree in art, I've had many existential crises over this concept of whether or not I'm even creating any of the things I made in the past. You know what I mean? Like, because you have to look
Mhm.
back on it all and wonder, like, did I really come up with that?
Yeah.
Did,
I believe that we're open vessels personally.
well,
Um,
yeah,
and yeah, like you're saying, anything created is from channeling. And we can either channel God's power or we can channel another spirit,
that's
a
right.
dark power, and use their spirit. And part of why I know that this is from a dark entity is because it's about harming
Mhm.
someone. And I Lacey and I are we don't believe that God is gonna torture anyone eternally, which we could talk about later if you're interested in that. But this is literally about taking somebody to burn alive. This is from a dark spirit, and a lot of people think that that could be from the Lord, that He's gonna burn somebody alive or something. But to me, I think this is an enemy speaking. Um, but yeah. Let's see. Misfits. So now I'm going to get into punk rock and kind of connect some of the things we were talking about earlier about the rainbow stuff. Um, American punk band. They started a horror punk subgenre, um, and that they're them and Alice Cooper and those guys are kind of the first people to bring like horror film imagery and just basically scary stuff into their live performances. Um, they started in New Jersey. The album artwork again, there's the UFOs. So
Mm.
like David Bowie tying in this kind of space theme, and Walk Among Us is literally the name of the album. Um, again, inviting something otherworldly into this realm. And again, they were. If you don't know what they look like, I know this isn't the best picture to see their faces, but they also did like a clown look to their face paint.
Mhm.
Uh,
I think they called it corpse paint, didn't they? Was that?
yes.
Yeah, that's the kind of
So
look
yeah,
gives.
it's kind of like a skull look
Yeah.
also, but it's got so much crossover.
But
If
the
you,
thing is that black and white style is actually very common in these other cultures all around the earth. In Africa, they black and white themselves up a lot. Black and white
Mhm.
lines, patterns, geometric shapes all over the skin and the face. In America, a lot of the Pueblo clowns, the Hopi clowns, the Wakinyans, the Heyoka spirits across all the plains, north and south of America, they call them the sacred clowns. They have the black and white skin pattern specifically. And when you get to the northern plains, the Dakotas, and they're talking about the Heyoka, what they say they're doing, the Heyoka who dresses this way, is channeling and trying to communicate with the spirit known as a Wakinyan spirit, which looks like the way he's dressing, black and white fractal pattern skin with weird antennae, you know what I mean? But really, what he's trying to represent and trying to get in touch with and communicate with and channel is a Wakinyan spirit, which is a thunder, rain bringing, lightning, eagle human monstrous hybrid thunderbird thing. Like it's the bringer of the rain and the storm. It's a primordial ancient god with powers beyond human conceptions. And you'll find throughout like history, it seems like the Nephilim have been linked to thunder and lightning in some way. So
Yeah,
when you get
David Bowie has
with
the
the
lightning
lightning
bolt.
bolt, exactly, so they're always linking to lightning. If you go to like the Wanginas of Australia, the Kimberley region of Australia, that's their flavor of Nephilim. They are the offspring of the rainbow serpents, and they came down to be giants among humans and taught all the humans what they know. So it's their version of a Nephilim story. The children of flying serpents in the skies mixed with the earth, mixed with women, basically. It's kind of the because don't forget, men were created from the dust of the earth. So when they say heaven and earth come together, they're talking about the angels and humans mating. It's all just their symbolic way of describing it. But they basically say, oh yeah, these Wanginas of Australia, they bring rain. They're always represented as having bodies made of raindrops, like they are the bringers of the storm, just like the Wakinyan of the North American plains on a continent across a vast ocean. It's the same spirit, it's the same creature, just with a different stylized, culturally specific way of describing them, with their own stories and mythologies, but aesthetics alone and behaviors identical. The same creature, because everywhere on the earth dealt with these things, but black and white fractal patterns, very common motif. So corpse paints, though not colorful like a clown, it's the exact same thing. It's another way of representing the spirits, the Nephilim. It's just like you look at snakes or lizards, very diverse, many colors, many shapes and sizes. Okay, so the Nephilim also would have been very diverse in the way they would have looked. They would have also had many different patterns and variations, just like snakes do. But black and white lines, very common. So let's make that clear before we go on. Just leave the corpse paint there because it looks like you're about to go on to the next stage, which is the glam rock era.
Yeah, more glam rock. Before we go on,
Yeah.
and this will be an edit real quick that we can both edit out. So I don't want to get my channel taken down. So I'll take out anything I said about rainbow people. But I'll just say some of the things we see going on today. I'll just say that when we go on here.
I call them the multicolored collective.
Multicolored collective. Okay, I like
That's
that.
nice.
All right.
That's how I get around it.
Because we're about to get into that. So
Yeah.
here we go. Okay, so we did the Misfits. Then we have the New York Dolls, another kind of founding punk band that was was in the early scene. They didn't have much commercial success, but they had a loyal fan base, and it's very similar look as well. It's kind of a cross between like drag and clown makeup. Like they're starting to introduce, women's clothes, but also, it still maintains that clown look. Like especially this guy in the middle here with the big, circular red cheek. So that's that. This is where I see that, all the things happening today kind of blending together, and where it kind of started, where the clown kind of began to mix with multicolored collective.
Yeah, but the clown and fashion did merge together around this time. And Lee Barry was a huge influence. He died of AIDS, actually. He was in that era of time and community, But Lee Barry is like a huge fashionista icon throughout the industry. A very large and a very, very gay man. It's the best way to describe him. Like, very much a part of his identity was that fact, He was painted by Lucian Freud, who's Sigmund Freud's nephew, who's a famous painter. And he was infamous for having this look about him. It's terrifying. It's really terrifying. But
what's his name?
Lee Bowery. So Leigh.
Leigh.
Bowry.
Oh yeah. Okay. Whoa.
Yeah, that's the reaction you get. Yeah, whoa. Like,
whoa.
But his influence on fashion echoes through to today. It really does. It's huge. Like he is the guy that they're all copying. And he had so many references to like Ishtar in his thing, and Semiramis, and he had like the many lights of like spiked up red hair and white skin, the white skin, the monstrous Nephilim-esque features type thing. But it was because of him that drag kind of evolved out of his style into what it is today as well. So it all kind of goes back to a Lee Bowery-esque influence, and that's where drag gets its really flamboyant imagery and look from. And you look at the fashion industry, akin to another creative industry like the music industry, it's also rife with this type of sneaky injecting the costume of a clown into society thing. And you'll find even just in 2023, Elle Fashion magazine did a full spread article thing showcasing all of the catwalks in Paris and Milan and all these type of things. And the in fashion was clown core aesthetic. And they had literally catwalk models walking down extremely prominent catwalks dressed like clowns. And this is the in style for the next year. And what you get on the catwalks is not the same as what you get in the outlet store. You get like a watered down version of the extremes of the catwalks. But the point is, they're now publicly getting the public to dress like clowns as a legitimate normal fashion choice. And in fact, it's the in thing right now. It's in vogue. You've got to, if you're not dressing in silly big shoes and Harlequin-esque patterns, what are you even doing? Do you even understand fashion? It's that type of attitude. They're getting people en masse to dress in more and more clownish features. And a lot of it's inspired by Lee Bowery, and it's all kind of linked to the same sources. So what we call this drag culture today, who are like one subsect of the multicolored collective. And you have to wonder what the spirit behind all of this is. If you just strictly go with aesthetics, well, I think I know where it comes from. I can tell what the spirit behind it all truly is. Forget behaviors, which are a whole other thing, which we probably shouldn't discuss.
Right.
Yeah.
Their biggest song, the New York Dolls, was Personality Crisis. So I think that this is self-explanatory, but it goes to show you kind of, more about the spirit that's behind the aesthetic.
I'm
so it's an attack on identity and spirit of confusion, I would say.
Yeah, well, it comes with many other things as well. The breakdowns of societal traditional norms, gender, and all these types. This was the early days, wasn't it? This is when it was first being introduced to the public. And where we are today is leaps and bounds ahead of this early stages of the agenda. But at the end of the day, you can get all political about it if you want, and they say, it's all about ideologies and these type of things. Fundamentally, it's a spiritual warfare manifesting.
Yeah,
the spirits behind these movements are apparent when you start considering my research. This is the Nephilim walking among us again, but you don't see them in their flesh forms because they don't have bodies anymore. They're in people's bodies. And the more people manifest colorful clown-like features in the way they dress, that could be the spirit within them manifesting physical. It's like a chicken and the egg situation, Did they dress that way to get the demon in them? Or are they dressing that way because a demon's in them? Which one is it? I think it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that nowadays. It's getting blurred. It's becoming a very odd scenario,
Yeah, or option 3, which I think is the biggest driving force, is because the world is conforming to a certain ideology, belief system.
Mm-hmm.
And so the people are trying to assimilate to it. And so that's what's really sinister about it, is like, even if you personally, like somebody personally doesn't agree, most people are so bound to what society agrees with that they're getting pulled into it whether they like it or not. And that's the good part about punk rock. We're talking about all the tie-ins to the spiritual entities, but there is a necessity to have a anti-conformity spirit inside of you. There has to be a part of everyone that says, no, I'm not going to do what you're doing just because everyone's doing it, or because it's accepted, or because it's well liked, or because people will think better of me. And that's the element of punk rock that I try and lift up for people, and to remember that that's the good side. There is something sinister going on as well, but
And I would say it's not so like A plus B equals C, because there are some really loving, wonderful Christian people who dress in unique ways, and then there are some pretty awful, horrific people that you would never guess
that are
because
dressed like
they
a clown.
dress straight, narrow, clean cut,
Oh, yeah.
everything
We have
polished.
we have like a
So-
narcissistic epidemic, don't we, right now? There's hidden psychopaths everywhere, and
Yeah.
the culture's kind of bred them to be that way as well. It's the driving force behind this spirit behind being alive in today's world. You know, all for one. You know, and that's it. Simply, everyone's out for themselves. It's a cutthroat world. You've got to step on each other to get to the top, and you know everyone's out to get you in this world. It's like Big Brother style. You got to look out over your shoulder all the time, and your enemy could be anywhere. Matrix style stuff. It's basically like a Gnostic, narcissistic world everyone's living in because of the programming, and everyone's terrified. So yeah, it's scary, but I think it's ironic. Like I said, punk rock originally was dressing in ways like this. No, maybe not like this, but you know what I mean. But a bit more out there and dehumanizing. Let's say, you know, tattoos, baldness, mohawks, things like this. You know, piercings and stuff like that. But now it's more punk rock to be a conservative Christian. Today, it's kind of switched, you know, and it's the spirit behind the punk rock attitude that counts, not the aesthetic. It's the rebellion against the conformative norm.
Exactly.
And it takes a lot of guts today to say I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
Like
it takes a lot of guts to talk about any of this. Yeah.
Well, you know, it publicly, yeah. Online, not so much because everyone's crazy online, and you know, people come to expect it on the internet. You know what I mean? But it's kind of try to talk to your friends and family about these things, and as I've discussed on my channel, you know, it's a whole different ball.
It's a whole different ball game. Yeah, absolutely.
It's you lose everything. You can lose everything. You know,
Yeah.
and you can lose friends and family and loved ones. Your wife can leave you and take the kids, or you could literally lose everything.
That's
you know,
true. Yeah.
it's kind of
It's true.
so you got to be careful. You really got to be watch your step. But at the end of the day, you know, if you're going to be a follower of Christ, it comes with that. It comes with declaring the truth, no matter what, whatever you lose. You know?
I think this conversation, just these ideas, are so important because the average young person today, like they don't even have like there's a good versus evil thing going on like in their mind at all. It's all just like anything goes, like you kind of create your own morality. There isn't a, you know, a truth. There's only like my truth. And so I think that's the really good thing about exposing the darkness and like this conspiracy element is the more of these truths that people can start to see that are affecting them in their daily lives, the more that they will seek out God.
I want you to get together.